What's up, guys? This is a piece of a mosaic right here. Anyways, little something about my work, I guess. So I'll start by saying this: the Mona Lisa is actually a picture of a whore realizing that she's Christ. One of the main things about understanding some of these concepts are knowing that there was a female priest class on the planet back in the day. In all these major religions today, we have Christianity, Islam, Judaism, and then Buddhist. And over here, I'm going to write Hindu. So these are the monotheistic religions. And this is polytheistic religion. Really, the only main one left on the planet. I really can't think of any other polytheistic religions that have at least 1 billion followers, at least. And Hinduism is a third of the world's population. Anyways, a little exaggerated, but there used to be a female priest class. That's why they say the oldest profession is prostitution, because that is all the female priest class was doing. However, they were indiscriminate and they were worshipped as being priestesses, the way priests get worshipped today. That's why in all of these religions, Hinduism and monotheism, you no longer have female priest classes. There used to be a female priest class all over the world. These religions weren't around back then, but that was what was going on. That's what they were doing. They were just fucking dudes. And so, something incarnated onto this planet. In the Bible, when it says, it saw the daughters of men bear and took them as wives, it's a reference to, I don't know how to... I think we get the idea here. So, this thing, archons, this thing incarnated into a human's body, and it used the old language, the pagan language, the language that was not written, had no written symbols, was only spoken. That was part of the first language, the hieroglyphics, the pictographs that people use. It was not necessarily, it wasn't language the way we use it today. The way that language was used was very different. It was more for singing, I guess you could say, while the language we use today is more for channeling logic. Okay. And so, back in the day, there was a resurgency of paganism. Paganism was all over the planet. Okay. And then there was a flood and wiped the whole planet out. God said, I'll never do that again. I will never cause the flood again, but I will cause another apocalypse, except this time it will be by fire. The flood happened, and then we move on to the fire. So, the fire is the end by the word, because fire is symbolic of the word. This thing incarnated into a human body. That doesn't necessarily look like fire. Anyway, so this thing incarnated into a human body, started speaking the old pagan language better than anybody on the planet. And it used that as a way to essentially rape women. Take wives, as the Bible says. It saw the daughters of men bear, and took them as wives. These are known as the Watchers. A collection of angels known as the Grigori. It saw the daughters of men. It saw the daughters of men. And that's how it basically raped the female priest class, because there are no religion separations like this hundreds of years ago. And when this thing incarnated and used the old language to rape the female priest class, it made it impossible for future generations to procreate without inbreeding. And that was the end. That was how this thing shut down this program, this planet that we're on right now. So that was the apocalypse. That was the real apocalypse by fire. Okay? That was the real apocalypse by fire. By the word. There is another interpretation to this, which would be the more true correct. However, this attempted to write over that, which is how the truth of spiritual healing, the truth of spirituality, spreads through the word like fire. That's ultimately what that really means, and how Christ consciousness incarnates onto this planet is expressed through the words that humans speak to each other. And the thing about that is, it doesn't matter what language you speak, it's going to sound the same in each language, regardless of the differentiation of dialect, because it's the way the logic is channeled through these bodies. the language that we speak, and how that's kind of what archetypes are. He says that archetypes are impermeable, penetrating. He's wrong about archetypes, but that's another video. And that's really what the logic of spiritual healing is. It's the same in every culture. So you think about the Middle East and the wars that have been going on there for millions of years, hundreds of years, who knows? So this is where those wars in the Middle East essentially come from. Because it's this thing that created these religions during its last incarnation. And then you have Rasputin, which getting into some different things here, so I think maybe Rasputin, but really is the Sumerian gods. Right arrow here, Sumerian. The Sumerian gods were around only like 500 years ago. Look, they're white dudes in the Middle East, bearded white guys in the Middle East. Those were Druids. Those were Crusaders that wrote themselves in as gods. I mean, that's why Petra is their tomb in Jordan, is because Iraq and Iran was where they stopped crusading. Ziggurat of Ur. Okay, and you can see there's, what is it, the Gateway of Georgia? It's got the Crusaders, pictures of the Crusaders when they were older. And so that's what the Crusaders were doing, is they were basically Druids that sold out to the Roman Church at the time. And they went around raping the female priest class because they could use the old pagan language better than anybody on the planet, which is basically where this religion comes from, Islam. This religion is a story about a prophet, Muhammad, who spoke about the power of monotheism, the truth of monotheism, at a time when paganism was coming back onto the planet. There was specifically a resurgency. So that indicates a end of it before. Okay. And I mean, even, during the garden. Okay. And then you have, when the garden was created, you have Cain and Abel, who were the only two people on the planet back then. So when Cain killed Abel, that in and of itself was an apocalypse. So this was before the garden even, well, okay, after the garden, I guess. But anyways, point is the apocalypse keeps happening on this planet. And that's what this planet is it just every few hundred years, it just resets itself, wipes itself clean, because this is what this thing does. That's how this thing controls this realm that we're in right now. Even though we're in its realm, it does not have ultimate control, because all is within God. And ultimately, God, which is love, is what's in control. Because of how these things, the only reason we're alive right now is because this thing gets more pleasure from feeding its intellectual ego by studying us than it would killing us off. So that in and of itself is proof that there is a much larger overseeing body of complex where this fits inside of. So, we're all over the place here. anyways, and that's really what a lot of some of my research, some of my work has been about. You know, I mean, you got, look here, you got, this is, his name starts with an H, forget his name, Haradi and Q or something. This guy was around in the 1500s. That's where this artwork is from. And you'll notice pictures of the plants here. Very unique looking plants. And this is supposed to be how everybody's naked. This person's got stuff up his butt here. What that, you know, this is very debauchery. 1500. You can see people were crazy back then. These were pagans. You know, 1500s. Like, anyways, so they saw how plants knew how to create an appearance for themselves. That's why these plants, these things are weird looking. Is because of how it's an exaggerated version of how they saw plants back then. Because, you know, I mean, you see how beautiful a tree is. So it creates the presentation that it's here for you by appearing with beauty, but ultimately it is here for itself. And it chooses to create a presentation for itself that of using beauty, that it's here for you to enhance its survival. Because it knows if it can appear like that, you will want it for yourself. And so you will bring it, invite it into your life. And that's really how demonology works. 101, possession. You know, you have to invite the demon into your life in order for you to be possessed by it. You know, there's a lot of like, oh, am I possessed? Am I not possessed? I need to get my third chakra cleared by 5. You know, and like really, like ultimately, that's how possession works, is that if you want to be possessed, you're going to be possessed. If you do not want to be possessed, you won't be possessed. So don't stress yourself out over it. So, you know, the appearance that paradise, this world is paradise, and that nature is beautiful, therefore it is here for you. You know, it exists on multiple levels of interpretation, because really this is a spiritual reality that has a purpose to it, in which it is to serve your eternal survival in a eternal creation. This is a very low level, like this is the world where souls are born, and it prepares you for eternal creation. Your soul's survival in eternal creation requires spiritual understandings versus just, you know, like survival of the fittest. Okay. So, you know, here's the end of Rome. Yeah. So that's kind of what the United States is. It's just a sustained collapse of Eastern Rome. West Rome fell, East Rome, their symbol was the eagle. So the United States exists within a constant state of decay. So, again, another video for that one. This is a lot of what my work is about, though. It is about the apocalypse. And this is the final apocalypse. It happened a few hundred years ago. But we are living through another one right now. That's really what all of this this stuff going on in the news is about. It's these people controlling everything, controlling the world. They have information about previous cycles that have existed on this planet. And they know how to use it, mainly the church. That's why Rome is where it is. They're excavating another city underneath of there. So they have information about societies that have existed, previous civilizations that have existed on this planet eons ago. And they use words from that language, lexicon, to create the story in the Bible, specifically the Bible. And that's the underground war. There's an underground war between these four religions. And it's really Christianity and Islam. It's really these two religions. So, and then Judaism versus these two. And then the Buddhists are just meditating, So like Christianity, the Islams, they make their women like cover up, wear burqas, but then they have 72 virgins is heaven. And then the men have multiple wives, so you wonder, this is their heaven. Jews, excuse me. Not trying to sound anti-Semitic there, but, heaven is a perspective, I will say that. So, Jews believe in the resurrection, which is basically reincarnation. This world is their heaven. That's why Jews don't believe in hell, is because they can't accept the fact that there is nothing else above this world, because this thing wrote these religions, Judaism and Islam. It wrote Judaism and Islam with the intention of putting them at spiritual odds with each other. So, Jews are kind of caught in the middle with this war between Christianity and Islam, and they just know it's on. They have to choose Christianity, because if they chose to side with Islam, it would lead to either their eradication or their overturn of religion. They would have to change their doctrine, and that's basically why Judaism has so much power, is because they have scriptures, and they're like, yeah, guys, we have these scriptures. We know they're very, very, very old. We don't know who wrote them exactly. Maybe Moses, but the Torah, and then Islam, they're like, okay, yeah, like, we have this story and we have this location, and that's all we have. That's all they have. That's all Islam has, is they have a story. They have a story and a location, and they know it's true. Meanwhile, Christians are just screaming about how cool virginity is and talking and speaking. You wonder why the Buddhists are meditating. Okay. So, anyways, full circle here. Yeah, Hindus they're crazy polytheistics. Not all of them are crazy, but like, yeah, rat temples and anyways, they do. What are those guys? They still do cannibalism over there. They still do, what do they got? Their I don't know, like Hasidics or something like, I don't know what they're called. But they eat like a grain of rice a day. They starve their bodies. They're people that torture themselves on like the highest level of possible torture. Anyways, so yeah, the apocalypse, really what this is all about is how we live in a post-apocalyptic world. You wonder why they glorify that in Hollywood, Mad Max. Because it's true. The Jehovah's Witnesses are probably the only branch of the Christian church that's right. If there ever was a branch of the Christian church that was right, it would definitely be the Jehovah's Witnesses, because they're the only, they know we live in end times. They know we're living in end times right now. This is not a Jehovah's Witness spiel, because it was their end times in the 1500s. Jehovah's Witnesses are the oldest branch of the church. They come from the 1500s, and that's where they started at. They were going door to door in the 1500s, in the Middle Ages, telling everybody in the town that those people living in the castles were still pagans. And those were the first Christians. So, yeah, anyways, this is like, that's, again, some of the things that I've come to understand in my life, in my research, in my work, about understanding about things, the way the world is, why things are the way that they are. It's a spiritual war going on over here. And it was written with a very deep understanding of how self-reflection works in relationships by this thing, which is where these, basically, all of these religions come from. And the apocalypse, the real apocalypse, happened about 500 years ago, maybe 300 years ago. And this is where I get into Rasputin. Rasputin had stuff to do with World War I, World War II, which is when the Jehovah's Witnesses say the end of the world started. Rasputin, he that thing was a Grigori. That was the last time this thing incarnated into a human body. That's why if you ever seen pictures of Rasputin, he has that look like he's getting caught doing something, because it knew it was having its picture taken. Okay? That's why when you see pictures of Rasputin, he has those eyes. He has that expression. And that's why these things look the way that they do, because my description of how the natural world creates a presentation of itself in order to deceive you. That is why this thing has its appearance to create the impression that it is meek, the little tall heads, the bodies, and then you got the weird arms, weird legs, thin, like it's, see, I drew it with 3 irises. That's how I've seen it. But when you see it in culture, it has, a black almond shaped eyes when you see it in media, mainstream media. This is what you see. The thing, when I saw it, it didn't have any nose holes. It just had two eyes, almond shaped, black, with three bright neon orange irises in each eye, which it's triangulating its position in space within its mind. That's why it has three irises. That's why the thing that I saw had three irises in each eye. It's because it's triangulating its position within its own mind. It thinks that this universe exists within its head. So, another video for that one. Anyways, but yeah, this is a very glossed over appearance. Glossed over, for those of you that understand, this thing has glossy eyes. That's all I have to say. Where a lot of my work comes from, a lot of it comes from being a TI, to be honest with you. This is where some of my research from being a TI has led me. I'd say a good chunk, like a third of the research I've done from being a TI has led me here. The other 2/3 goes down a spiritual route, which is more about self-awareness and your realizing your emotional reactions and learning how to have compassion for yourself, forgive yourself, so that you do not react anymore. You're a less reactive individual. So you have more self-control, more self-empowerment, which anything leading you outside of yourself for truth is not of God. And that's the problem with all of these religions. Monotheistic, these for polytheistic and Hinduism, is they need you to look into their scripture in order for these religions to have validation, which if you looked within yourself for your own validation of determining truth, which is the logic of morality, the emotional intelligence of morality, that you would no longer need any of these religions at all, because that's what the deception of all religion is that you need something outside of yourself to understand right from wrong. And really, you only need your heart, because it is your heart that opens you up to empathy, which is how you determine right from wrong, essentially. So, this is just some of my work in understanding about where we are, why we're here today. This is more what's his name? Jordan Maxwell. He's not bad, but he focuses a lot on where we're coming from, because there are people that want to know, like, why is stuff like this today? Where are we coming from? How was things hundreds and hundreds of years ago? And that's kind of what this is an explanation of, is that this is essentially where we're coming from, because this planet wipes itself, it resets itself every few hundred years. Another apocalypse happens. If you study history, you'll see the further you go back in time, the longer the time gaps get. Like the past 500 years, you know, you have until the 1500s, the Middle Ages is pretty well documented. And then they have from 500 to 1000, they're like, oh, these are just the Crusades. They just section off a period of 500 years as if that was all that was going on. So you have 500 years here. And then 500 to 1000. And then after that, they get into the Stone Age, which is periods of like thousands of years. So like 1000 to like 5000 BC. So here they go. So like these are like Stone Age, Bronze Age, hundreds, thousands, and then before the Bronze Age, okay, you're getting into like thousands of years, tens of thousands of years even, because if you go from like the Stone Age was like fucking 32,000 BC to like 75,000 BC, you can even put a 7 in front of that 5, I guess. Either way, this is nothing compared to, what do we have here? Prehistory. Prehistoric. You have the dinosaurs. We're talking about millions of years, hundreds of millions of years. Okay, so like 1 million to 100 million. And then here you get your fucking Big Bang, which is base fucking trillions of years. We'll skip billion. But that's the thing, is so like the further you go back in time, the larger the time gaps get, which is contradictory to how past 500 years is right. Everything is very specific. Everything there's every year has an event for the past 500 years, even like 300 years. But once you start getting past 1500 into the Crusades, that's when history starts to get blurry. And then they start sectioning things off, like the Neolithic age, okay, Neolithic. I guess we could put a 75,000 there. Because you get into hundreds of millions. 75,000 is like nothing compared to hundreds of millions, okay? That's like 1,000, over 1,000. It's like 1,075,000. Over, like 750, 75,000, maybe. So, that means they're trying to make it seem like something that happened more distant in the past actually happened more recently, i.e., the end of the world. And that's, again, what this is all about. It is about that. I don't want the true history of this planet, but when you talk about history, you have to include the story of creation. That is the true history, is where creation comes from. And that's what religion essentially controls, is they control the story of creation. So you can see how power has been divided amongst these groups. And then you have Hindus out here all on their own. And again, each of these groups, there's divisions of power. You look at the UK, the Scottish, you could see like they have how architecture controls feminine psychology, which is why they're the Freemasons, the Scottish Rite. And then you have the Wales, their language comes from the Roman language that was used to call military strategies, and that's why their flag is the red dragon, which is a symbol of the Roman army. England has London, which is basically the center of the world when you consider how stocks are exchanged. London is in the center of the world in the way the time zones work. So when the stocks are being reset in America at like 12 p.m. or something, it's like 6 a.m. over there. I don't know. London sits in the middle of the world economically because of the way the time zones work and how at night the stocks change every 24 hours. They flip. There's like a pause from like 11:59 p.m. to 12 a.m. There's like the stocks do something. Anyways, and London sits in the middle of all that. You know, the Mormons, they're allowed to openly, legally marry underage girls in front of everybody in America because of the way their religion works. Iran just did that. They lowered the age of consent to 9. And they're few wealthy people in that country, they're the only ones that have like multiple wives because their Islamic religion gets stereotyped as that, which it kind of is, the whole 72 virgins thing. But that's another video. Don't want to get into that concept right now. Guess this is it though. This is really, a brief overview of some of the research that I have done and why there is so much New Age conspiracies, people looking for alternative forms of energy, if it's government, religion, alternative gods, alternative governments, alternative religions. That's why the New Age is so big. That's what people want right now. People want change. People want alternative solutions to their problems because they're tired of the hamster wheel that religion offers us to solve our conflicts, because of the way war conditions us to solve conflicts with negative emotions. That's why there's so much war on the planet, is to condition us that way. So I guess that's it for now. That's going to be it for now. Look at this Herodian. This is a Herodian era. You can tell it's Herodian because of the lines on the pottery. There's some lines there, and that's indication of Herodian era pottery. So, concludes my session for this evening.